Welcome back to Freedom Pulse. It's been a few weeks since our last episode, but we haven't been on vacation. We've been busy behind the scenes, working on a new website layout, launching our Watchers from the Galleries program, and speaking to grassroots groups all over Missouri. We'll share more about that later in the show. If you're new to Freedom Pulse, this is where we dig into what's really happening in Jefferson City and across our state. Who's keeping their word, who isn't, and how it all affects your family, your freedom, and your wallet. In today's episode, we're going to take a closer look at the people shaping Missouri policy behind the scenes. You're going to hear something very revealing about the man who now controls the Missouri Senate's purse strings, Senator Rusty Black, chair of the powerful Senate Appropriations Committee. When he needed an expert to help work on the new school funding formula, he told us who he trusts. Once you hear who that is, you may see his priorities in a very different light. We'll also look at another senator whose fiery words on social media don't quite match his actions in the Capitol. We'll play you a clip from former Senator Bill Eigel on Real Talk Radio, calling him out, and then compare the rhetoric to the record. As Scripture reminds us, you judge a tree by its fruit, not by its tweets or Facebook posts. Later in the episode, we'll give you an important update on the Missouri State Tax Commission, including the ongoing saga of the ombudsman position, required by statute but still mysteriously unfilled. The story keeps changing, but the result is always the same: no ombudsman for Missouri taxpayers. And before we get to all of that, we'll start with a quick rundown of several key developments since our last episode: court rulings, utility decisions, and a shakeup in the Missouri House that you need to know about. We'll begin with some good news out of Cole County, where a judge just struck down a bill for violating Missouri's single subject and clear title protections in our state constitution. Let's start with some rare good news out of Cole County. A judge there just struck down House Bill 2062 as unconstitutional, not on the policy, but on the way it was passed. According to the judgment in Four Seasons Lakeside's Property Owners Association v. State of Missouri, HB 2062 started as a tiny 3-line bill dealing with local moratoriums on evictions, and by the end, it had exploded into a 75-page grab bag of everything from COVID shutdown rules to tax credits to land banks to even a provision about backyard chickens in homeowner associations. On page 28 of the ruling, the judge says HB 2062 violated Missouri's original purpose rule, the single subject rule, and the clear title requirement in Article 3 of our state constitution, and even the contracts clause in both the Missouri and U.S. constitutions. Because of that, he didn't just trim a few sections, he invalidated the entire bill. That's a step in the right direction. For years, lawmakers have been jamming dozens of unrelated ideas into massive omnibus bills in the final weeks of session, exactly what our Constitution was written to prevent. This ruling sends a message: the rules still matter. But here's the catch. This only happened because someone was willing to sue and challenge the bill. If we want legislators to start taking their oath seriously, to actually follow the Missouri Constitution instead of treating it like a suggestion, more of these Franken-bills are going to have to be challenged in court. HB 2062 is gone. The habit that produced it isn't. That's why staying informed, pushing back, and supporting constitutional challenges when we can is so important. Not all of the recent decisions out of Jefferson City have been as encouraging. The Missouri Public Service Commission just approved Evergy's new large load power service tariff under SB 4, a special rate for massive power users like data centers. Supporters are already pointing to this order as proof that big projects will pay their fair share, so families don't subsidize them. But in this case, the PSC's own staff and the Office of Public Counsel broke with the commissioners, warning about cross-subsidy risks and proposing stronger protections for regular customers. The commission instead sided with a settlement backed by Evergy and a coalition of large corporate users. We've done a full breakdown of what this order actually does and what it doesn't do for Missouri families in our article, Fair Share or Cross-Subsidy. PSC staff broke with commissioners on Evergy's data center tariff. You can find it on our website at Act for Missouri. Here is the link to the story. There's also been a change in the Missouri House. Representative Justin Sparks from the 110th District has submitted his resignation to Governor Mike Kehoe, effective November 24th at 8 a.m. In his letter, he thanks the people of the 110th for the privilege of serving and says he'll be joining the Department of Homeland Security, continuing what he describes as a life of public service and a commitment to keeping our nation safe. Not long after that announcement, a Facebook post from the Stevens Campaign Committee introduced Niall Stevens as a candidate for the now open 110th district seat. In his message, he tells Republicans in the district that he plans to run to be their next state representative and promises to continue the work Justin Sparks started in the House as a steadfast conservative. More details and a campaign website are reportedly coming soon. We're not taking a position on that race today, but we will be watching, looking at records, votes, and actions, not just campaign rhetoric. And we'll keep you updated as things develop in the 110th. We also want to give a quick update on the ombudsman mess at the State Tax Commission, an issue we've been following from the start. Near the end of the last meeting of the Special Committee on Property Tax Reform, Representative Dean Van Schoyak pressed the commission about why they were advertising an open, full-time position that wasn't the ombudsman.
Representative Van Schoyak, please go ahead.
Well, since the commissioner brought it up, the ombudsman position come to my attention. You have advertised for a FTE that's vacant, but not the ombudsman position. Is that correct? Come on up and let's talk about this.
That is correct. We do not have the appropriated funds for the ombudsman at this time, but when we met with the governor's staff last week in our formal presentation of our budget, we did have that position listed in our request in our NDI for FTE.
You still don't follow the argument I made earlier that because you are funded for an ombudsman, which is in the statutes?
We spend the money that we have. We don't have the additional
You've
funds.
got the money. You're just using it for a position other than ombudsman.
All positions that we have within the state are, again, provided to us as a way to do our job. And if we have to decide which is most important, that's kind of hard to do.
Well, gee, let's think here. One's in statute and the rest aren't. Wonder which one's most important.
Well, as we've gone across the state, as much as the assessors need our help, the position that was listed is for local assistance in helping our county assessors do their job. And so we feel like that is an essential position to satisfy the biggest concerns that we received from these hearings across the state is assessors need as much guidance as possible and the training. So again, that position needed to be filled.
Well, it seems to me I heard in Kansas City about a lot of state BOE cases that are still open. Is that correct? How many do we have open still?
19,000.
19,000. That's not more important than the other position? The ombudsman helping people out with their cases?
Well, that's our hearing officers are trying to get those processed as quickly as we can. Well, and we have taken the extra steps, Dan, Stacy from our office, any calls or any opportunities that we have to help the taxpayer. I know Dan's taken extra calls. We're trying to step up and fulfill the requirements of that position with what we have to work with at this time. We are taking it very serious that the taxpayer is one of our priority concerns.
Well, your idea of taking it serious and my idea of taking it serious apparently are two different things. Because my idea of taking it serious is when a FTE comes open, you make that the ombudsman position because it's in the law. It hasn't been taken serious for 16 years. It's time it was taken seriously.
The commissioner admitted they do have a vacant FTE, but said they don't have appropriated funds for the ombudsman and chose instead to prioritize a different staff position to help with appeals and legal work. Van Schoyak pushed back, pointing out that they already have the money, they're just using it for something other than the one job the law actually requires. If you've seen our earlier videos on this, you know the story keeps shifting. First, we were told the ombudsman wasn't funded. Our research showed the legislature funds a block of positions, and the commission itself decides which titles to fill. Act for Missouri reviewed the budget and found that the employee funding is a single line item. It does not dictate specific job titles to fill. In other words, staffing choices sit with the State Tax Commission. Representative Van Schoyak asked House Budget Chair Representative Dirk Deaton, who confirmed that understanding.
Asked a question of our budget chairman, Representative Deaton, about funding this position, and he told me that you have the right to hire whoever you want to once we as the legislature say yes, this many FTEs, you can hire them for any position you want to.
After more public pressure, the commission said,
Message well received. I appreciate it.
Yet here we are again, with a new excuse and still no ombudsman in place. 16 years after the law was passed, taxpayers still don't have the independent advocate they were promised. At the same time, the commission is proudly telling the committee that they've adopted a 90 to 110% target range for assessments from an international industry standard group, the IAAO, even though that range appears nowhere in Missouri's Constitution or statutes. Our law says true value in money. The 90 to 110 band is an administrative rule they imported from outside Missouri and decided to enforce. And here's why that matters right now. Some members of the special committee are floating big constitutional changes that would move even more power up to the State Tax Commission. Drafts like HJR 5, 6, and 7 from the second special session would have the commission design a statewide 10-tier system for residential property and set the tier factors that drive how much tax each tier pays, then require every county assessor to plug local properties into those commission-designed buckets and base local rates on those state-set factors. So put that together. This is the same State Tax Commission that chose an international standard over Missouri's own constitutional language, and that still refuses to obey the statute requiring an ombudsman for taxpayers. In our view, that record argues for less centralized power in Jefferson City, not more. We should not hand them the keys to our assessment system. We should respect the role of locally elected county assessors. Next up, we want to talk about one Republican senator, one very powerful committee, and one lobbyist you probably didn't vote for, but who's being treated like the real expert on your kids' education. The senator is Rusty Black, Republican from Chillicothe. He was just made chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, the Budget Committee. That's the most powerful committee in the Missouri Senate, and he'll also be steering the discussion on how we fund public schools going forward. You'd expect the guy in that role to be sharp, independent, and able to stand up to lobbyists. What we see instead is this.
And you guys think I'm the dumbest person in the room. I am.
So the man writing the budget calls himself the dumbest person in the room. Now, who does the dumbest person in the room turn to as his expert on school finance? He tells us.
I'm going to look behind at my expert. It has been raised one time that I remember. Yeah, 15%. I did remember that. I'm trying to remember if it's been raised more than once.
Senator, if you would you have him come up and introduce himself, please? Yeah. You've referred
Normally
to him
he can
twice.
text me while we're
You've referred to him twice now, so once we can overlook, but twice is, and a witness form. If you
okay, Otto has supplied me throughout my time here a lot of information.
In that clip, Rusty Black literally looks back at the witness row and says, "I'm going to look behind at my expert. Otto has supplied me throughout my time here a lot of information. He's been a very good resource for the committee." Then the man at the microphone introduces himself.
Sir, if you would introduce yourself and for the record, if you don't mind.
Sure. This is autophagy with Missouri NEA.
Autophagy with Missouri NEA. So let's pause right there. A Republican senator, the new chair of the Senate Budget Committee, the guy deciding how billions of your tax dollars will be spent, including on education, tells the world that his expert, his main resource, is a lobbyist for the Missouri NEA. The NEA is not just a neutral group of kindly teachers. The National Education Association is one of the largest and most powerful left-wing organizations in the country. They push DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion training that divides kids into oppressors and the oppressed, promote curriculum and resources that tear down America's founders as racist oppressors instead of teaching a balanced view of our history, aggressively advance radical gender ideology in schools, telling kids there are many genders, encouraging pronoun changes, and backing policies that keep parents in the dark. When you hear about schools spending more time on identity politics than on reading, writing, and math, when you see school policies that treat biological reality as optional, the NEA is almost always somewhere in the background pushing that agenda. That is the organization whose lobbyist Rusty Black calls his expert. Think about what school funding really is. It's the lever of control. Whoever shapes the formula and the budget decides which programs grow and which wither, which districts get rewarded, and what strings are attached to the money. If your expert is an NEA lobbyist, you are not going to hear, how do we protect parental rights? How do we keep DEI and gender ideology out of the classroom? How do we get back to real academics and honest civics? You're going to hear, how do we protect the programs they care about? The DEI offices, the coordinators, the consultants, the trainings, the equity initiatives, the gender policies. That's what's sitting behind Rusty Black in that hearing. That's who he leans on. And now, he has the gavel in the Budget Committee. This is how a deep red state quietly drifts left, not by Democrats winning all the elections, but by Republicans outsourcing their brains to left-wing lobbyists. Some people will shrug and say, well, everyone uses lobbyists. That's just how it works. No, this is different. It's one thing to listen to a range of voices. It's another thing when a Republican senator, who calls himself the dumbest person in the Senate,
That's about what people need to know. I'm not very smart, because I'm a hick from where you call yourself.
turns around, points to an NEA lobbyist and says, "That's my expert," and then hands that person a central role in shaping how we fund schools. If you're a conservative parent, a taxpayer, a Christian who cares what your children are being taught, you cannot be okay with the NEA functionally writing the fine print on Missouri's education spending. Here's the bottom line. Senator Rusty Black is now one of the most powerful Republicans in the Missouri Senate. He chairs the committee that writes the budget and will shape school funding, and he is proudly using a Missouri NEA lobbyist as his expert. If that bothers you, it should. So here's the call to action. Let Senator Black know you expect him to represent Missouri families, not NEA lobbyists. Ask your own senator whether they're comfortable with NEA being treated as the expert voice on school funding. And most importantly, pay attention to the bills, formulas, and amendments that come out of his committee this year. Follow the money. See whose priorities get funded. We don't need the self-proclaimed dumbest person in the Senate handing the steering wheel to the NEA. We need senators who fear God, respect parents, and have the backbone to tell the lobbyists, "Thanks for your input, but we work for the people of Missouri." I want to share a short clip of former Senator Bill Eigel, filling in for Drew Shelton on Real Talk Radio. In this segment, he reads a Facebook post from Senator Brad Hudson about responsible government spending.
So let me read you this quote. Now, this quote is from State Senator Brad Hudson, who is in southern Missouri. He's a freshman senator, and he's talking about why we need to be careful about government spending and why we need to watch it. basically. And so this is his quote from Senator Brad Hudson. He said, "The elected official must understand that every dollar government spends is a dollar that was taken from the pocket of a hardworking citizen. At the core of every conversation about taxes, programs, etc., should be an understanding that we are spending other people's money. It's great to be generous with our own personal funds, but there is absolutely no virtue in being generous with your neighbor's resources." Well, that sounds like a pretty good quote.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a great quote. And everybody's kind of weighing in saying, oh, yeah, watch that spending. Well, what he failed to mention in his quote is that he voted for every single budget appropriations bill that came before the Missouri legislature this year, which was a record amount of spending, included no cost efficiency, cost savings, or reduction in the waste that is associated with that budget. And yet he's out there talking about, hey, we need to be more fiscally conservative. Why can't we be more fiscally conservative?
Wow.
This is precisely why so many folks despise public officials. They despise candidates. They think the worst about candidates is because they'll say what sounds like,
hey, that's great.
That's great. They say all the right things, but when it comes to doing the right things, oh my gosh, their voting records are terrible. Their voting records are the opposite of what they're selling themselves to be.
Eigel is right. That's a great post. But the most crucial thing in that clip isn't the wording of the Facebook statement. It's his reminder that the voting record matters more than the sound bites. That's a principle we all need to apply across the board. Don't take any politician's words, no matter how conservative they sound, as automatic truth. Look at how they actually vote, what budgets they support, and whether their record lines up with what they say on the microphone. The talk can be polished, but the roll call votes tell you who they really are. Before we wrap up, I want to share something encouraging that you can be a part of. Over the last few weeks, we held our first kickoff event for our new Watchers from the Galleries program at the Missouri Capitol. The idea is simple. If politicians know that ordinary citizens are in the room, watching, taking notes, and reporting back to their communities, it becomes a lot harder to play games with last-minute amendments, fake debates, and rushed votes. We were blessed to have a surprise guest that day, Representative Bryant Wolfen. He stayed for the entire event and offered valuable insight from a legislator's point of view about how citizen involvement really does make a difference, and how much it matters when people show up, pay attention, and follow up. Watchers from the Galleries is our effort to organize that kind of peaceful, informed presence in Jefferson City. We're training volunteers to come to the Capitol, sit in on committee hearings and floor sessions, document what actually happens, and then share those reports so Missourians don't have to rely on filtered talking points. The kickoff was a great start. People showed up, asked good questions, and many said they want to be part of a regular rotation of watchers during session. But this is just the beginning. In the coming months, we want to build teams from across the state so that, on any given day, there are citizens in the building who aren't lobbyists, aren't paid staff, and don't have a special interest. Just Missourians who care about truth and accountability. If that sounds like something you'd like to be part of, head over to our redesigned website and look for the Watchers from the Galleries section. There you can learn more about how it works and sign up to get involved. Even a day or two during session can make a real difference. Before we close, I want to take a moment to thank some of the groups we've had the privilege of visiting over the last few months. We've been invited to share our research and updates with the Clinton County, Missouri Republican Club, We the People of Livingston County, the Caldwell County GOP, We the People of Franklin County, and the Stone County, Missouri Republican Assembly. In every one of those meetings, we've seen the same thing. Ordinary Missourians taking time out of busy lives to learn, ask hard questions, and get involved. Our next speaking engagement is coming up on December 8th with We the People of Pettis County. If you're in that area, we'd love to see you there. If you're part of a local group and would like Act for Missouri to come and present on property taxes, utility rates, the surveillance state, education issues, or the legislative session, reach out through this email address. We're happy to work with you to schedule a time and topic that serves your community. That's all the time we have for this episode of Freedom Pulse. If you found this helpful, please share this episode with a friend, your local group, or on social media. The more Missourians understand what's really happening in Jefferson City, the harder it is for bad ideas to slip through unnoticed. Be sure to visit our redesigned website to read our deep dive articles, including the breakdown of the Evergy Data Center tariff. Watch our videos on the State Tax Commission and the Missing Ombudsman. Learn more about our Watchers from the Galleries program and sign up to get involved. Thank you for listening. Thank you for standing for truth and accountability in Missouri. And we'll see you next time on Freedom Pulse.